Welcome, everyone. It finally dropped. The infamous, the one, the only Wes Huff's interview on Joe Rogan. What we've all been waiting for when we all found out very recently. But yeah, finally dropped. Came out yesterday, about 3 hours long. I have it linked below. I thought it was incredibly great. I highly recommend people who haven't watched it to watch it all the way through. I'm not going to cover everything tonight. I'm going to cover some highlights, what I think were some of the best points of that conversation. And they were all kind of towards the end. So I think that's when it really took off, was at the end, the last hour and a half or so. Thought it was really, really good. Now, it wasn't perfect for sure. I mean, Wes did make some mistakes. He even said so. When I was talking to him earlier, I said if he wants to, he could pop in and we could cover some of that, but he's probably pretty busy right now. So not sure if that's going to happen. But I mean, like, a couple of things, like, for example, the claiming the Isaiah scroll is word for word the same as the Masoretic version of Isaiah. Not really true. He may have been just thinking hyperbolically, but it's not word for word. There are some changes for sure. There are some differences. Most of them are pretty minor. I mean, I may have said it's like 99% roughly the same, something like that. He said 400 when he meant to say 500. He said, in the Enuma Elish, humans are made from like the blood of Tiamat. That's not true. Who is it that they're actually? It's like her consort or something. Joel Correcco wrote it down for me. Kingu is who it is. So there's some issues there along the way. He's speaking mostly outside of his area of expertise. But I thought he did really well here. And so what I thought would be great is I bring on some crazy ex-Muslim to talk with me about this. And that's who I decided to bring on, was this leader of all the Muslims, Ridvan.
Oh, hello. Didn't know you were talking about me.
I sure was. You watched the Wes Huff thing or no?
I was planning on watching it last night and then was planning on watching it today, but I still haven't gotten to watch it, actually.
Yeah, it's a pretty good interview. I think it got really good there at the end, for sure. It definitely picked up. The first part, they're just sort of like talking a little bit of back and forth. Billy Carson, Rogan goes on about the pyramids, yo, and it's like, and like the Sphinx being super old, and Wes is like, yeah, I don't know much about that. And then things started to pick up towards the end. So it was a very interesting conversation, to say the least. Thought it went really
Did
well.
he ask him about DMT or something?
He did. He didn't ask him, but he brought up the guy Rick Strauss, who did the DMT research, and
okay.
Yeah, he didn't. He was like, I guess Joe was kind of fishing there, but Joe's got scatterbrains. He brought up Rick Strauss at one point, and then he just went on about how, yeah, Rick taught himself Hebrew, and then they went on to something else. So I think Joe was planning to go on the DMT route, but he didn't.
See, I knew it. I was planning on listening to it. I told my wife about it, and she started listening to it, and she said, "This is very, very good." So, yeah, apparently, I don't know, from what I have seen of Wes Huff, the guy is super interesting, super smart, super knowledgeable, very good guy. So I'm really happy that he's getting so popular right now.
Yeah, it's pretty great. He made a couple minor errors, which I'm sure a bunch of like atheists will be like doing 7-hour responses with like, Wes Huff, liar, proven kind of nonsense. Because I mean, like, there were a couple times, he misspoke or he got something wrong when he's talking outside of his area of expertise, for sure. I think overall, though, it was a really good conversation, and it's doing really well. It's got like 2 million some views or more than that now. I don't know.
Well, generally Christians who like every single Christian that I know who is online talking about Christianity, explaining Christianity, and doing like Christian apologetics and responses is like totally boring. Every single one of them, every single Christian is totally
suck.
And he's the only one that's interesting. No, just kidding. I'm not sure how this really happened. How he is he suddenly quickly. Okay, I do know how this happened. Apparently, he somehow got the chance to speak to Billy Carson, and perfect opportunity to put this guy in his place, and the guy lost his mind as a result, and this catapulted him to popularity, and now he's booming. Very, very nice.
Yeah, he did the whole Billy Carson thing, and then what it really shouldn't have been anything big. Like, honestly, it shouldn't have, because like it was just like a minor conversation. If Billy would have just ignored it, nothing would have happened. But what he did was is he like tried to like get them to not post it, and then he was going to threaten to sue the host and Wes and all this stuff, and it was like, dude. And then that just made it more popular because everyone was saying, like, because Wes went on his channel and was like, Billy doesn't want me to show you this, and he's threatening to sue if you see it, and everyone was like, oh, this looks really interesting, and it just exploded. And then Joe watched it, PBD Podcasts I think has watched it. So I mean, a lot of stuff is happening, and it just shot Wes up into popularity. Billy
That's the
created
funny
his own
thing,
monster.
isn't it? It's like, had Billy just ignored this and taken the L and the embarrassment and just buried himself under it and just moved on, all of this wouldn't have happened. But the fact that he got so outraged and tried to attack the show and the host and Wes and all that just contributed to this blowing up and exploding in his face. It's just ridiculous.
Oh yeah, it's amazing. And like, yeah, there was this should not have happened, but it somehow just did. So I'm gonna play some clips. We're gonna go through some couple things. Again, I think the more interesting stuff is at the end and all that stuff. And brings up Jordan Peterson and sort of criticizes him, which I kind of agreed with. So hey, I started a super chat goal. If you guys want to contribute to that, if you get 50 super chats in about an hour, I will show you a sneak peek of my newest video coming out this Friday on did the Gospels copy and imitate Homer? Yes, that's a theory that needs to be addressed. I know how weird it sounds, but it's kind of big online right now. So I'll show you a sneak peek of that. But let me first I want to do is I want to show, like, I want to give credit to Joe. Like, Joe has come a long way. Like, this was Joe like on one of his podcasts, like 9 years ago or so. This was when he had Peter Boghossian on, and this is the kind of stuff he was saying.
And no one goes, what is God? What are you saying? Like, what are you saying? Do you think Jesus came back from the dead? What do you think? Do you think someone walked on water? Do you believe in the literal translation? Are you an Old Testament guy or a New Testament guy? Well, the New Testament. No, well, the New Testament was made by Constantine, who was a fucking Roman emperor who wasn't even Christian. He didn't even believe it. He became a Christian on his fucking deathbed. Like, that's when he became a Christian. Like, all these people that are like really into the New Testament, and like, I'll talk about Old Testament shit, and people get mad at me on Twitter. They'll send me this fucking hate text. You understand, motherfucker, what the difference is between the Old Testament and the New Testament? Because the New Testament is utter horseshit. It's created by a bishop and a fucking emperor. That's a fact.
This is
established religious fact.
That's a fact. It's a fact. It's created by a bishop and an emperor.
This is hilarious. I'd never seen this before, but this is just it's kind of funny to see how he speaks from a place of complete ignorance of the subject and is being very aggressive about it back then. This is kind of a funny thing to see now.
Yeah, and now he's got Wes on, and so he's really come a long way, and you got to give him credit because that clip got pretty viral on like TikTok, and everyone was making fun of it for a while because it's like, no. And so but yeah, that was 9 years ago or so. So credit to Rogan for like being open to like change and like, hey, I'll have this young upcoming scholar on, Wes Huff, to talk about it. And like they talked a little about Constantine and that stuff, and it's clear Joe has sort of moved on from those old ideas. So it was credit to him where credit is due. That was a pretty cringeworthy clip that kind of went out viral a few years ago.
It is very good to see that. What he said there in the clip you just played sounds like stuff that the online atheist community of memers that just discovered atheism and they just started rebelling, like things that those people, like even worse than things that those people say. It's just really, it's really, really bad. So the fact that he moved on from that and became so open to having it all properly explained and to acknowledge it and to also be quite positive about it, to be honest, is a very respectable thing to see. It also kind of shows how the initial reactions with the rise of social media and of Joe Rogan's podcast, the initial reactions to religion were very, very excited and excitable and weird and very much emotionally fueled and not much supported with information. Things are changing slowly. It's an interesting thing to see.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. God bless the Streisand effect. Yeah, you know what that means? Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
She had like a photo of her house that she tried to like not get revealed, and like that just made everyone want to see it. It's like, yeah, same kind of thing. You try to suppress something, it's gonna get out there. It's just, it is what it is. You got to be careful with that kind of stuff. Derek's complaint about Billy being low-hanging fruit is as if Derek's theories aren't already low-hanging fruit. I mean, they're pretty fringe, pretty easy to address. I got some fun stuff planned on that for next week, but you'll see then when we come out with that. But yeah, I kind of the whole Homer epic borrowing stuff. It's just, wow, it is. Whoo, boy, it's out there. What do you think of Uthman saying Sam's running? Uthman is saying Sam is running from him. Of all the people, Sheikh Uthman, Sheikh Ketchup is saying that Sam is running from him. Uthman runs from everyone who tries to debate him. Who is he seriously trying to claim that? Wow, that would be something. That would be slimy. That'd be
Well,
catchy.
Sheikh Uthman is running from me, so
And me. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
running from us.
Yeah.
Stop running from AP
You're
or
scared.
myself, Uthman. Why are you scared of us? You can bring a friend, or we can debate you one-on-one at a time whenever you're ready. Why are you running from us? All the people to claim running. That is the worst possible guy. So let me pull up the Wes Huff interview here. This was pretty great. As I said, again, he got some issues wrong, and I guarantee people are gonna like capitalize on it and like go see like 2-hour streams of Wes Huff liar, trying to deceive his audience. In fact, I've already seen a little bit of that already, and I was like, okay, come on, like, so maybe he just got something wrong. Like, can we just accept that maybe that could be the case? So yeah, let's play this first clip here on evolution that I wanted to cover.
So as a Christian, what do you think about all this stuff? Like, what do you think about ancient hominids, Australopithecus, Neanderthals? Like, what was God up to with all this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a scientist, so I
Right.
got to stay in my lane. I ultimately would be an advocate for intelligent design, where I would say that that God purposefully created humanity in a way. You had Stephen Meyer on, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's one of those guys who talks about kind of the issues that he sees with
Right.
evolution.
Yeah, I got a lot of issues with what he does, Stephen Meyer. He like cites like really old studies to like continue these arguments he's been using for a while. Like he tries to say there was so much of an explosion during the Cambrian explosion that it could not have all been from evolution, but it still covered millions of years. And scientists now talk about like 2 Cambrian explosions or more that happened over a series of, again, millions of years. So I wouldn't go to him, but I mean, again, that's Wes's view. I'm just giving you mine. And yeah, I will interrupt this sometimes because the last time we did a Joe Rogan podcast on a stream, like the freaking like company like had it like copyright claimed for like a couple months or like a couple weeks, I mean, before we got it released. So I might interject here a couple times just to maybe trick the algorithm so that doesn't happen again, because nothing wrong, but it just might get flagged.
And I think I have some of those issues too. My friend Jonathan McClatchy is a biologist, and he does some really great presentations on the ways that he sees kind of the intricacies of Neo-Darwinian evolution is not quite explaining some of what's going on with things like the fossil record and some of the gaps that we have in there. When you talk about early hominids, I mean, ultimately, I think that there are aspects of the fact that there are ancient cultures.
I want to point out
humanity, obviously.
Yeah.
I want to point out very, very briefly also an acknowledgement here, which is it's very refreshing to see that that some guy says something like, "I'm not a scientist, so I want to stay in my lane." It's a
Mhm.
very, very, very refreshing thing to
Yeah,
see.
and that's really hard to do on the Rogan podcast because that guy again is scatterbrained. It makes for interesting conversations, but you're like 1 minute talking about ancient Egypt, the next minute you're talking about evolution, and then all of a sudden talking about like physics, and it's like, okay, whoa, a lot of topics to cover.
Looks very different today than it did, if we're going tens of thousands of years ago.
Right.
And so I think that there's a different kind of convention and understanding. But ultimately, I would ascribe to there being an original Adam and Eve, and that those are our, like, if you want to call them like our first parents kind of thing. But there are other Christians who I would disagree with, but I think have interesting articulations of that in terms of theistic evolution. I disagree with them, but it's certainly not out of the realm of possibility to find explanations. I don't think the Bible is trying to explain how people came into existence in the
Mhm.
same way that maybe we want it to.
Yeah, that's on point there. I think that's kind of like one of my main problems with like young Earth creationism is it's like, well, we need it to explain origins of everything. Therefore, we're going to impose that on the text. And I don't think Genesis is trying to or even aiming to do that. I think it's more about talking about issues that were important to them. Like, where did the functions of the cosmos come from? Who's really in charge? Like, it's not trying to explain where matter came from. They weren't thinking in those terms.
And a lot of people read the origin stories in Genesis as a scientific textbook. And I think ultimately that misses the point of what Genesis is trying to say. This goes back to what we were talking about with like, how would the original audience understood this?
Right.
When they read Genesis chapter 1, are they looking at that as an exact prescription of what God did? I mean, in some ways, maybe, but in other ways, they could see that as this like counter apologetic to the other ancient Near Eastern stories, like I explained. So I just think we need to be careful when we're looking at, or even like counting up the genealogies and coming up with how old the Earth is. I think that might be missing the forest for the trees in what we're actually looking at when we look at ancient documents and how we're trying to interpret them. But it is a big question, right?
Well, the question of evolution is a fascinating one, right? Because there's obviously something happening, particularly with us, if we really are related to Homo naledi, naledi, or there's something clearly is happening. This is like process of change, and if we don't completely understand all the factors in that process of change, we might miss out. The equation might be incomplete. It's like we know a lot now about evolution that we did not know before, but like all sciences, new data comes in and you have to recalibrate things. Like, have you been paying attention?
Yeah, let's stop there because he's about to. He's just going into physics now. Like that's just Joe. Like we're on evolution now. We're on physics. Boom, go. And poor Wesley's like, I'm just a New Testament scholar. Like, why are we talking about this?
That's weed for you. That's what happens when you smoke weed.
Yeah, I mean, like the whole thing with evolution, I don't see why that's such a big deal for Christians. Like, I'm a full-blown theistic evolutionist. Like, I don't see why this is a big hill for some Christians to really die on. What's the problem? Genesis, I don't even think Adam and Eve, like Genesis even says Adam and Eve are the first people. Because if you actually look at the way Genesis 1 and 2 is situated, Adam and Eve are not mentioned until Genesis 2. Genesis 1, when it talks about humans, it doesn't talk about a pair. It talks about humanity, like in general terms. And then Genesis 2:4 starts with this phrase, these are the generations of the heaven and the earth. And the phrase, these are the generations, is a common phrase throughout like Genesis to sort of refer to like a chapter marker. Like it always introduces what comes next. And then Adam comes on the scene. So that would imply the humans in Genesis 1 are given the Imago Dei before Adam was even thought of in the author's mind. And so if that's the case, it's not really explaining where these humans came from. It's just saying God gave them the Imago Dei. And then in Eden, he has Adam set up along with Eve. So I never understood why Christians were so like against evolution when like dude, like, what's the problem here? Like, why can't they just work? I mean, Genesis is not a scientific textbook, as Wes said.
There's always been the perspective, this Philo or Philo, I would say, as a non-English speaker, would, for example, during his time and other Jewish thinkers and so on, even before that, and especially later on, always considered that Genesis and many parts of the Torah maybe can just be considered not to be taken entirely literally, but rather as metaphorical or allegorical and so on. And that you don't have to necessarily see it as a literal account on how creation exactly as you understand it began and so on. As far as I understand it, it's even more the Christian perspective from the beginning has been more literal compared to the Jewish perspective at that time, although later on the allegorical views in Christianity also developed.
Well, I mean, you can go back to like Clement of Alexandria in the 2nd century, and he's arguing that Genesis 1 is allegorical.
Okay.
You see of that. You have Augustine as well. You have Athanasius as well. You have a whole bunch that are like, one of the reasons they're doing this is because they're dealing with Gnostics. And so Gnostics believe that the various groups, they believe that the God of the Old Testament was different from the God of the New Testament. And so they would argue the God of the Old Testament is not the real God because he's a liar, he's evil. And one of their arguments they use is they compare Genesis 1 and Genesis 2, where it says the 6 days of Genesis 1, and then in Genesis 2, it says in the day that the Lord God made heaven and earth. And so then they would say, well, look, there's 1 day here, there's 6 days here. Look, is the God of the Old Testament making a mistake? And so early Christians like Clement, Athanasius, even Justin Martyr were countering that. Maybe it wasn't Justin, I'm thinking. Maybe it was Irenaeus. But they countered that by saying, no. These days are not literal 24-hour days. They're either like long periods, I think is what Irenaeus was trying to get at, or they're just these metaphorical aspects. These are just like Augustine talked about, like, the reason why they're written like this is because it helps the reader better understand. But really, God made everything instantly. He didn't have to do it over several days. He could do it instantly. So there was a whole bunch of early Christians who were like, nah, Genesis 1 is allegorical.
Noise.
Yeah. So, I mean, like when people say like, well, why you're going against the 2,000 years of church history, yada, yada. No, I'm not. Like, no, I'm actually very much in line with what a lot of church fathers were getting at, although my view is still different.
I am kind of I have been fascinated with Gnostic history. It's funny that you bring this up, with the whole idea that is represented there, which is that that parts of the Old Testament may have been authored by or snuck into it by the demiurge, who is not necessarily all evil, but a confused, flawed, kind of messed up being that has turned everything into a giant mess, and we are imprisoned in the world that he has created, and so on. It's kind of an interesting, funny thing to dive into.
It is. It is interesting what some of the Gnostics believe, and I do think that Muslims did get some of their beliefs from them, like the idea Jesus wasn't crucified. Like, where on earth would that come from if not the Gnostics? Like, it's crazy stuff there. Thank you, Cedric, for the very generous super chat. If you've ever got a question, let me know. It was amazing to see Rogan now express distaste for ardent skepticism instead of belief. I'd like to see Wes versus Dan McClellan. Well, Dan McClellan doesn't debate, and he blocks anyone who uses his own tactics against him. So I don't think that will ever happen, unfortunately. It's unfortunate evolution isn't more widely accepted among Christians, even highly educated ones. I wonder why that isn't. I think a lot of it comes from, I think people like just feel like, well, there's probably a couple of reasons. I think one of the reasons is a lot of Christians do feel like it's been like a club that it's been used against them for a while to beat them over the head with. Like, you have a lot of like people like Jerry Coyne, for example, that are just like, you can't believe in you can't be a scientist and a Christian, blah, 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 blah. And they use this almost like a hammer. And so a lot of Christians go, well, screw you. All right, fine. I guess we are at war. and they sort of push back on those things. And the way a lot of evolution is presented, it's presented as if it's like naturalism, and that's really not the case. And it's a lot of scientists that it became kind of apologetic, muddying the waters, unfortunately. Like Jerry Coyne is one I can think of. Richard Dawkins, another guy. And really, if you go and you read a lot of the scientists, like there's a lot of evolutionary biologists that are Christians. Not the majority, but I mean, like there are people like Francis Collins, for example, Simon Conway Morris, another guy who's written a lot on convergence and evolution, arguing that there's more like design and evolution because of convergence. So if you look at things like the three-toed sloth or the two-toed sloth, they're not related at all, but they both kind of evolved into this sloth form. And Simon Conway Morris uses examples like that to argue that evolution is like fine-tuned to bring about certain structures. Like you eventually should get humans on his account. He's used examples like the camera eye has evolved multiple times, not just in vertebrates, but I believe in like cephalopods as well, another line as well. So like the camera eye is such a complicated device, and it has evolved more than once. So he used examples like that. And so like I don't see why evolution has to be compatible with Christianity.
Powerful. Wouldn't it be just a doable? I mean, I guess it is doable on a personal level until you hit a certain point. But that you would believe in Christianity or in your religious beliefs, while also being entirely tolerant and accepting and okay with the idea of scientific exploration into evolution and all of that. It should be possible to hold those things independently without having them conflict with each other, I guess. But the point, the issue is that lots of people, especially I guess younger people, I would say, in the face of certain challenges from evolutionary biology, accepted into the mainstream narrative, start seeing a conflict with the traditionalist Christian teachings, and then start having a clash, and then others start addressing evolution simply because of that, in order to address this clash and to restore a Christian worldview and so on. I guess if you could make it work to hold both of those positions without having them clash with each other, everything would be totally fine.
Yeah. I mean, like, and that really wasn't the biggest scientific clash for Christians. Really, the biggest one was when they discovered the New World and there were people living in the Americas, because a lot of early church fathers said there shouldn't be people on the other side of the globe, the antipodes. Like, they're too far away. There's no way there could be people there. And then when they discover them, they're like, well, are they descendants from Adam also? The church ultimately agreed, yes, they are descendants from Adam, but that was a huge crisis for them, like about 500 years ago. Like, what do we do with people on the other side of the world? How do they get there? Like, it was a difficult issue for a while. Historian, now I asked about deep space physics. Yeah, Wes, that's why I brought you on, to talk about deep space physics. How dare you not prepare for that? Joe held up his framed gift like an 8-year-old who doesn't like his Christmas card. Yeah, Wes got him a really cool gift. Let me see if I can find that really quickly. He got him like this really cool gift he made him a facsimile. I think that's around the 2-hour mark. Yeah, here it is.
Of what?
Of P52, I believe it is.
It's crazy.
If you just imagine the sheer number of illiterate people,
which is actually in Dallas, you people like me don't have to go to Europe where a lot of these manuscripts are housed. We can look at them, and because these are such high grade, that you can.
Where is that? It's like
of the gospel.
He handed him the facsimile, and he just stared at it for like an hour or something. Maybe it was around like 1 minute mark or something. I don't know. I'll have to find it. But yeah, he didn't know. Wes did a really good job because he can make the facsimiles. And he pulled up and gave him one, like right there on the spot that he had brought for him.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I can't find it. I don't remember exactly where it is, but yeah, that was a cool gift. I wish I could get one of those. Thank you for the 10 memberships. Much appreciated. Is there any evidence for the crucifixion? Oh, dude, you should see the debate. that AP and David Wood just had with the two Ahmadis. like, dude, like I debated one of those guys like a couple months ago, and he used the exact same arguments against you that he used for me. And I'm like, dude, I debunked these. Why are you still using them?
The funny thing is that we had a debate with these guys about Muhammad, whether Muhammad is in the Bible or not, and after that, these guys actually asked to postpone our other debate because they needed more time to prepare. So we spent months waiting for them for the debate. Eventually, the debate arrived. David Wood and I both quite similar in terms of preparation. We prepared the day before the debate, but apparently these guys prepared for like months, and they brought nothing except just the random same things that we heard already from his debate with you.
I know, man. Like it's ridiculous, and it's like the evidence for the crucifixion is that like anyone who ever talks about what happened to Jesus says he was crucified. Like Tacitus says he suffered the extreme penalty. Josephus says he was crucified. New Testament documents say it over and over and over again. No one's really denying this until the 2nd century with the Gnostics. And they're not like, is there evidence for the crucifixion? I mean, like, yes. But I mean, you also have to remember the Quran says he wasn't. So, or the Islamic theology says he wasn't. So that's a pretty powerful response when some guy 500, 600 years later says so in Arabia. I mean, he had more insight than what the disciples had. I mean, about what happened to Jesus, obviously. I mean, you can't argue with some Arabian caravan robber a couple hundred years later. What are you going to do?
Of course, the Arabian caravan robber, he knew everything. All the early accounts, all the early writings, they had no idea what happened until Muhammad came along and finally said, you guys waited 600 years. Finally, I'm here to deliver you what actually happened.
This is the weirdest thing, man. I'll like debate Muslims, and they'll just be like, Jesus was a Muslim because the Quran says so. And I'm like, are we really doing this? Like, man, again, like. Speaking of that, it's a good segue into this next clip I planned.
It's right 1,000 years later. Pretty bananas.
Well, I mean, that is kind of the crazy thing about Christianity, where you have this Jewish itinerant guy who's walking around first century Roman occupied Judea. He's making some pretty audacious claims to be God himself. And then he predicts his own death and resurrection. And then his disciples they think it's over.
That's even something a lot of secular scholars accept, that he did predict his own death. They'll say that he predicted his own death. And one of the reasons is that he was saying a lot of things that was going to upset people. So like he probably knew that Rome was eventually going to come for him. The only problem is the things that really upset the Jewish leaders, that reason why they turned him over to Rome, was that he was claiming to be God. He's claiming to be the Son of Man from Daniel 7. And then he was also like, so that was one of their big reasons why they handed him over, is that kind of reason. So if he did predict his own death because he was claiming some pretty wild things, it would be that he was claiming some level of divinity there. It wasn't just that he was going around healing people, or as Muslims say, that he was just preaching we should all worship the one God, which the Jews have been like, yeah, we know. Anyway, who cares? But yeah, that's something interesting, is that I see a lot of secular scholars do accept that he did predict his death.
I just have one issue with I have issue with one thing that he said, which is he just called Jesus a Jewish man, and we have learned from the great scholar Kim Iverson that he was definitely not Jewish. So
that's true. He did not hold to the religion of Judaism. Yehudaism. That'll be a good one for a while.
Like they're like, he's dead. We're done.
Yeah.
And then they go from 11, scared men, because Judas commits suicide, scared men in an upper room, to completely overhauling the Roman world in only a couple hundred years, because of this claim that they say they saw Jesus resurrected. Like there's something different that goes on there, that they're like, this is a miracle, right? Dead people don't usually rise from the dead.
So what is your personal belief when it comes to the resurrection? What do you think do you have a belief, or do you just try to interpret the text and try to see what is the message?
Well, I think so. As a historian, I do think it is a historical question. You have a guy who objectively lived, he objectively died, and then individuals close to his inner circle claim that they see him not dead.
Right.
Again,
This is a highly unusual activity.
highly unusual.
Right. So, but it's hard when you're dealing with illiterate populations. You're dealing with
That is one thing about it being highly unusual that I always want to pull my hair out over, is because I'll deal with like fans of David Hume, and they'll be like, well, if Jesus rose from the dead, how come other people didn't rise from the dead? I'm like, I don't think anyone is trying to claim that this is just a normal, natural phenomenon that happens. Like, we are trying to say that Jesus, something different happened to him that didn't happen to normal people. Like, this is something that is a miracle. We would not be like, I would never try to argue for the resurrection. Yeah, because a bunch of other people resurrected in like India like 500 years ago. Like, that's not how anyone would argue. I don't understand why that argument is ever brought up by some skeptics. It just boggles my mind.
thousands of years of time. You're dealing with an oral tradition, and then you have us sitting here talking about it
Mm-hmm.
in 2024, trying to figure it at the end of 2024, trying to figure this out. Literally the end.
Yeah.
Last couple of days. It's very difficult for anybody who thinks of themselves as an intelligent person who's secular to even entertain the possibility that someone died and come back to life.
And I get that. But we've already talked about the fact that we don't think that the only thing that exists is matter and motion. We, as in
Right.
you and I, right?
Right.
Like, we believe that there's something else going on in this world that's a little bit crazy.
There's something else.
And that to, I think, exclude that, I think
that's a good point to bring up too. It's hard to argue for the resurrection with people who just don't believe there is a God, like atheists. Like, they'll just be like, I think you need to first establish that, hey, some form of basic theism or deism exists before you can even begin to start asking that question. I think that's an important something you have to have in your background knowledge.
excludes something that you're kind of putting blinders on for. And you do have, I mean, you're right in terms of all of these ancient conventions and the ways that things were spread around. But the Gospels are written in the lifetime of the eyewitnesses. And they're written in this period of time where you have groups of individuals who could have fact-checked those things.
Yeah.
So
How do you fact check someone coming back from the dead?
well,
How many people saw his body, right?
Paul says that 400 people saw him all at once.
400
500.
people saw the crucifixion.
No, saw the resurrected
resurrection.
Jesus. Yeah, 1 Corinthians 15, Paul says that Jesus appeared to the disciples, and then he appeared to 400 people all at once.
500.
I mean, if we read the Gospel of Luke and the Gospel of Luke and Acts, so same author wrote these both documents. He says that Jesus was walking around teaching them for 40 days
Wait a minute.
after.
What?
So yeah, I just looked it up. 1 Corinthians 15, it says, after that he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers. All right, well, he got this wrong, so I can't take anything that Wes says seriously anymore.
You're right. He's screwed. Not everything he says is just wrong now at this point. He's
Like, if he's wrong about this, then that means he's obviously wrong about everything else.
You see, ladies and gentlemen, how can you trust him? This is a proof you must convert to Islam. It's the only logical explanation, because a Christian made a mistake. As this has been told, I've seen them actually argue before.
He was resurrected from the dead. And so these are written within a time period when you have people who would have seen Jesus's ministry, who were there, say at something like the feeding of the 5,000, who could have been able to verify or debunk some of these things that are being said. And you go from a bunch of scared guys who, because Jesus wasn't the only messianic figure who arose and claimed to be the Messiah.
Right.
There were a number of individuals both prior to and after Jesus, but they die and the movement dies with them.
That is one of the historical anomalies that a lot of historians try to explain, which was like, why on earth did Christianity become what it was? Because it was a Jewish messianic movement. And when like Simon Bar Giora died, or Theudas died, or the Egyptian prophet died, all of his followers were like, well, let's find a new Messiah. Like, Kind of like that line in like Life of Brian, where he's like, "I say you are the Messiah, and I followed plenty of them. I should know." It's kind of like that. It's historians are like still trying to figure out if they can come up with a naturalistic explanation for how Christianity got going, because it's like the only Jewish messianic movement from that time that really became a religion. All the other messianic movements, when the guy died, that meant the end of the movement. Like the moment they caught Simon Bar Giora, took him back to Rome and cut his head off or threw him off the rock there. That was it. Like no one was like, that means he's the Messiah. That means he's God. And he resurrected physically. Like the Christians are an historical anomaly. And that's sort of like what a lot of where the evidence or the arguments for the resurrection come from. It's like, how do we explain what actually happened that turned these scared disciples into some sort of movement that changed the world? It is interesting. Let's see, what do I got here? If Joe Rogan is often scatterbrained, he ought to have someone like Andrew Lokon, who often uses transdisciplinary approaches. Yeah, that might be an interesting conversation. Andrew Loke talks kind of fast, though. I hope they would have a good conversation if that ever happens. But yeah, that could be something in the future if Joe ever finds out about him. They briefly touched on the Billy Carson debate. Do you think Billy watched this interview? Your thoughts? I don't know what Billy's doing. He has really tried to like pivot since his disaster of a stream. So I don't know about this, Ridvan, but like after like the whole Wes Huff debate came out, he decided to go on his channel for 3 hours and explain the debate as if it was a fake debate. It was a setup. Not only was it fake, they dubbed his voice to make him say things he didn't say. And then he said he was going to sue the people. He was going to sue everyone. He was calling people defendant number 2 and defendant number 1. And like, it was crazy what he was trying to pull. And and then like a few days later, I think he realized his huge mistake and he pulled it down because so many people were like, this does not look good. Like, what are you thinking?
The guy seems to have some delusions, and although you would think that, or you could think that somebody like this guy who makes a lot of money over being delusional and telling delusional stories, I wonder if those delusions affect him so much that he actually starts buying into them, or just selling these delusions, even when he explains something as simple as losing a debate so horribly. But to claim that they edited the footage and they made up things and so on, he took it down. I've seen it on different channels. Have posted it. Apparently he makes claims to take it down on those channels as well because he just doesn't want it to be seen. But it is out there. It is like 3 hours long, and he clearly lost it. He clearly lost it badly there.
My favorite part was he said he was going to sue defendant number 1 for
$1 million.
That was by far the best part of the whole thing. Was him. Oh, I actually kicked you out. That was by far the best part of the whole thing, was him trying to claim he was going to sue them. And like then he said in the actual stream, he's like, listen, I don't care if I win. I just want to make you spend money. That is openly admitting to what is called a slap lawsuit, which is illegal in Florida. That would open him up to be countersued. And when he said that, his entire case just crumbled. He's got nothing.
What an idiot.
Idiot indeed, yeah. Main problem I have wrapping my head around theistic evolution is that animals and human ancestors died before Adam and Eve. I guess since it's not from sin, could you help elaborate more? Yeah, so the Bible doesn't say, in my view, that all death resulted from sin. The place people go is Romans 5, where it says, as one man sinned, sin came into the world and then death spread to all men. But then they ignore the very next verse where it says, like 2 verses later, it says death reigned from Adam to Moses. Obviously, Paul is talking about spiritual death because death didn't stop with Moses. And in the same chapter, he talks about life in Christ. Obviously, spiritual life, because we're not like made physically alive when we become Christians. So I think the whole section is just talking about spiritual death and spiritual life. And the whole thing, you can actually argue for animal death in Genesis 1. For one thing, it says Genesis 1 says humans have dominion over the animals and that they are to subdue the earth. That word for subdue is very harsh. It tends to refer to like war conquest or enslavement. It's implying that the earth is not perfect and God is calling humans to subdue it, to make it perfect. And when it says they have dominion over the animals, that word is also very harsh. It probably refers to them using animals for whatever purposes they want. Clothing, livestock, food. And, you know, this was even Philo's early view, is that Genesis 9 was just repeating the same blessings that humans already got in Genesis 1. So when Genesis 9 says they can eat meat, that was already implied in Genesis 1. So I think animal death did exist in Genesis 1. I think there's a lot of reasons to think that. I love that Wes asked Joe what he thought of Jesus, but Joe's rambling answer was insane. There's always hope, though. Yeah, I'm about to play that. That might be a good way to segue into this. That one is at 3:05. Because then at the end, like, Wes really tries to get him to, he's really trying to like, hey, let's talk about like your religious views here. And so he kind of like started popping the question to Joe, hey, what do you think of Christianity? Like, kind of thing.
Fuck do you know? Have you died? Like, you don't know. You
So-
know, like,
In all of this, what do you think of Jesus? Like in terms of your own like journeying and trying to find answers to ultimate questions. What do you think of the historical person of Jesus?
well, it certainly seems like there's a lot of people that believe that there was this very exceptional human being that existed. So the question is, what does that mean? Does it mean he was the son of God? Does it mean he was just some completely unique human being that had this vision of humanity and this way of educating people and spreading this ideology that would ultimately change the way human beings interact with each other forever? So what is he the son of God? Well, are we all? That's another question, right? Or do we all have that inside of us? Do we all have that ability to change everything around us inside of us? Do we all have that unique connection to the divine? And is he a representation of the best version of that? Or was he an actual person that was the son of God? And is it important?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, what does it mean? It's just the fact that it's a question to ponder is a miracle in itself, in a way. Just the fact that there's this concept of this person that died for our sins as the Son of God, but you have to you have to believe in a bunch of stuff to go that way. Like, just the concept of that is interesting to people, because what it can do to people is offer them a very unique way to change the way they feel about the world itself. And if you do follow that, I know a lot of Christians are hardcore Christians. They're some of the nicest people you'll ever meet in your life. So it does work. You right? Like, if you do live like a Christian and you do follow the principles of Christ, you will have a richer, more love-filled life. So it is true.
Nice.
Right? But you have to submit to this concept that this guy was the child of God who came down to earth, let himself be crucified, came back from the dead, explained a bunch of stuff for people, and then said, all right, see you when I come back.
And you don't know how you can wrap your head around that particular.
So I mean, it's kind of a ramble, but I think that Joe is just trying to get at, like, maybe it works, maybe it's true, but he doesn't really feel like he can really like just get his head around the whole thing, or he can believe that Jesus really is who he claimed to be. It feels like, I don't know really what to take with that. Obviously, he's moved more in a neutral direction since like over the past 10 years, because he's not playing clips like about Constantine making the Bible anymore. But it just seems like one of the things I think is the biggest things that holds back a lot of people from Christianity is this, like, do I really need to like people just, I think a lot of incredulity sometimes. People have a hard time accepting certain beliefs or letting go of certain things. I don't know what your take on that is, though, on the whole issue.
Powerful. I was just looking at the statistics, to be honest. I was kind of distracted with looking at the views of the Billy Carson episode that Joe Rogan had, and the views of the Wesley Huff stream. And the Wes Huff episode has more views after 24 hours than the Billy Carson episode had.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that Billy has created his own worst nightmare. This is the Streisand effect. I mean, like, listen, I have said dumb things in interviews. I remember one time I said the name Josiah comes from the name Yeshua, and that was just wrong. I don't know why I was saying that. I was like, what was I thinking? But never would I be like, quick, don't air it. Like, that would just make more people want to watch it. And
Yeah.
it'll look like I'm trying to hide from an error that I obviously made. Like, don't do that kind of stuff.
Take that down. It wasn't me who said that. It was actually they made me look like I said that. They made me look like I said that, and I know what's going on, and I'm going to sue the person who published that live.
My gosh. This was a crazy argument from Joe here. He starts going into AI.
And if he came back, here's the thing. If he came back, who the fuck would believe him today? With all the fake news and all the CGI and AI, like, imagine that would be the most bizarre thing of all time. If we get to a point where artificial reality is indiscernible from regular reality and Jesus chooses to come back at that moment, boy, that's the ultimate test of faith, right? When it's impossible to discern. If we really reach a point where virtual reality is indistinguishable from regular reality, which we're probably 100 years away from that or something. Like, how far? Maybe not even that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's probably why Jesus came in the 1st century and not the 21st century.
But imagine
anything to point out.
I don't even know what this would mean. Like, if we have AI, like if how would AI be discernible from reality? Don't you just take the goggles off? Like, I'm confused to like how that would be an issue. Like, maybe I'm just an old fogey at this point and can't.
Well, there are attempts at or thoughts, experiments, and attempts at being kind of transhuman and uniting AI with regular human daily life, such as implanting certain things and then making it so that you no longer see only the world outside, but rather you will have an overlay of things and can bring things into existence with a chip in your head and something in your eyes and so on. To then have Jesus come back, that would be an interesting. This is an interesting thought project.
Yeah, I'm not getting any chips in my head. Damn whoever does. I don't know why. I don't know who you would trust. I don't trust Elon Musk that much. I'm not letting them put a chip in my head. I don't understand.
I am waiting for it. I want the chip in my head. I'm just waiting for somebody to finally offer some functioning chip so I can put it in my head. I don't even care.
All right. You heard it here, folks. This is some crazy stuff. I am not looking forward to the future sometimes. I'm going to be a crazy old man. I remember when I was a kid, I was like, I'm not going to be like those old people that rejects technology. And I'm well on my way there. I am like already getting mad at the way kids dress now. I'm going to get a lawn and be angry when they're in it. I can't wait to be old at this point.
You'll be Clint Eastwood.
I sure am. I will be that from in that movie with the Asian neighbors. That's going to be me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that scares the shit out of me.
I really appreciate, guys that you're friends with, right? Like the Jordan Petersons and the Douglas Murrays of the world, or, the Tom Hollands, not the Spider-Man actor, the historian, who talk about this stuff. I think I really like the way that Jordan Peterson articulates it, but I think he misses the forest for the trees.
How so?
In that he sees Jesus as an archetype. And I don't think actually even Jesus gives you the opportunity to see him as the archetype. Because I have this love-hate relationship with all of Peterson's stuff, because he seems to get so much right where he walks up to the line, but he doesn't want to cross over.
And is the crossover, you think, connected to a life in academia? Or
no.
What do you think it is?
I wonder, and I'd love to talk to him about this, like how do you remedy this issue that, because he seems to think that the concept of Jesus as an example is more important than the actual flesh and blood first century itinerant Jewish preacher who was crucified and rose from the dead physically, which is the claim of the Gospels and the rest of the New Testament. That's an example for us to look on and live by. But I actually think that Jesus condemns moralism. And ultimately what I see Peterson doing is looking at Jesus as a moral example. And if Jesus is nothing but a moral example, then you can save yourself and you don't actually need a savior. And so I think actually Jesus would have critiqued that because Jesus was very against moralism.
And how do you define Jesus being against moralism? Like, what do you mean by that exactly?
Well, Jesus looks at the religiosity of his day with like particular groups like the Pharisees and the Sadducees, where these other groups of Jews during his day. So we talked about the Essenes, actually aren't mentioned in the Bible, but there are other groups like the Pharisees who are like lay scholars and the Sadducees who are professional priest scholars. And he's constantly critiquing the fact that they have this hypocritical religiosity to them where they're doing things like tithing their mint leaves, like to make sure that they get all of. This is where we get the idea of the letter of the law versus the intention of the law. Like Jesus critiques them for that because he says, you're trying to do everything right and you're missing the point. So one of the things he says is like, if your donkey falls in a ravine on the Sabbath, do you pull it out? Or does that work? Like, what's the point of the Sabbath? Is it to not do any work? Like, is it to make sure that you're not working too hard because you might be breaking the Sabbath? Or like, what is the point? He says, like, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. And that there's this intention. This is the whole Sermon on the Mount, Matthew chapter 5, is he keeps saying, you have heard it said, but I say, and he refers to the Mosaic law. And it looks like he's critiquing the Mosaic law, but he's not actually. He's getting back to the intention of the law. So when he says, you know, you have heard it said, do not commit murder, but I say to you, anybody who harbors a hate for their brother in their heart has already committed murder. And what he's getting to is like, what's the intention?
IP, what do you think about, what do you think about this entire section on moralism as a whole?
I think he's dead on. I think this is one of Wes's shining moments of the whole conversation. Like, he's really just articulating the gospel message here, which is like, you can't be a moralist. You can't be one of those people who thinks you're going to earn your way in, praying, tithing, pilgrimage. That's just not going to work. And that's one of Jesus' big critiques. Like, there's a famous verse we always use about, like, you know, when Jesus says, like, when you go and pray, go pray in your closet. Don't be like the hypocrites who pray out in open, for surely they have their reward. And like, that's kind of the biggest problem is the moralism. The moralists in this world, it's whether it's in Islam or Christianity, it's people who think they can earn their salvation or they can be a part of the shining examples and just go out and show how pious they are, how good they are. With those, you know, those Muslims have the mark on their forehead, show how much they're praying with their thing on the ground. It's like, it's all showmanship. It's like, that's what Jesus is really coming to attack and critique, was that he's basically saying, like, the law is not there to give you salvation. The law was there to show you that you can't get salvation. It was to draw sin out, as Paul says, so that you would eventually realize, man, I really hope God saves us from this because we are so screwed in this current position. And so that's really what Christianity was about. It's not what Peterson is doing when he's like, yeah, Jesus is just his really good moral example, and he's just there to show us the way through how he acts. No, Jesus is there to save people, to save us, not to just show us how to be good. He's there to show us that he was good because we just can't be. So I think Wes did a really good job.
Yeah, actually, it's like Jesus Christ is the archetype that everybody is supposed to follow, and once you grasp the meaning of the morals that this figure of Jesus is presenting in the text that we have in the Christian faith, and you get the idea, and you can wrap your head around the archetype and become part of the substrate of the
That's so perfect.
Well, I've been working on it.
Good Lord, that was like, oh crap.
Yeah, no, I heard this part here that he just that they just talked about. I just saw I saw a clip of that, but I kind of forgot it. Forgot that I listened to that because it was very late at night. Now getting back to it, hearing this again, I remember listening to this part, and I haven't seen the rest of the discussion very much, but just this part here about the whole about Wes explaining Jesus's message on morality and moralism in contrast to the moralism that the Pharisees and the Sadducees that he calls out repeatedly, how it differs from them. This just it's very impressive to me. In fact, I would say that this is why I'm impressed with this guy, with Wes, because I think just his little explanation here, as a non-Christian coming from the outside, gives me a better understanding of the foundation, or of one of the core messages of Christianity. You know, one of the core purposes of the gospel laid out in the New Testament. It's very insightful. It makes it very accessible for somebody who may not fully know Christianity. To me, I think this is one of the few things that I have heard that makes Christianity, or understanding Christianity, very accessible. Which is why I think this is a brilliant section right there.
Yeah, I thought this was one of the best sections. I was kind of upset it was towards the end because I thought it was really good. But I'm glad people have seen it and they're spreading it around, because I thought that was really why Wes was there. Like, he said he wanted to try to get that across, to try to explain what Christianity is and what the gospel message is. Because like everyone just sort of thinks like, and I deal with Muslims all the time. They think it's just like Islam, but just the Western version. Like, you have to pray and do these certain things, and that's going to get you into heaven. And that's, oops, I hit my light the wrong way. And that's one of the reasons that, you're going to get into heaven, is because you do certain things. And that's really, it's so antithetical. It's hard for me to even believe that that Islam is in the same like Abrahamic faiths, because they're just so fundamentally different in how they work, especially in terms of salvation. Like, there's just no comparison here. Like, it boggles my mind. But yeah, Wes did a really good job at explaining what the gospel message is and why it is different compared to other worldviews out there. I thought it was very important to do that. I just keep thinking of those people like in Europe that keep like praying, like the Muslims keep praying in the streets, like the blocking traffic. Like, why are you doing that? Like, you're clearly just doing it for attention.
It's that's what it is. It is all about power. It is all about showing off. It is all about here we are, we Muslims, we strong. And this is not just an attack on Muslims or on Islam. I mean, I know this, and I don't want to say, yeah, I was part of that. I know how it is from the inside, but it literally is that way. I learned the very same mindset as well. This whole idea of Christianity, of getting the point of things and not doing it for show. This is not something that I was familiar with before, learning about Christianity. In Islam, it was all about showing our devotion and presenting it and showing our power and our presence, and they shall all see that we Muslims are out there, and so on. It's really ridiculous, really, really ridiculous, and
yeah, it's interesting. I'm researching for a script right now called "How Christianity Saved Children," and like I'm bringing up that Bruce Ryan paper that Daniel Haqiqatjou used to cite, because he actually brings up the fact that like as Christian missionaries went around the world, they kept encountering people who were like using not only young girls but young boys for all sorts of dark purposes, like intercourse. And like he even brings up a whole section on Islam. He's like male and minor intimacy he says this was pervasive in Islamic societies from the 8th to 9th centuries. Attraction was seen just as normal as heterosexual ones. Main interest in boys were early to mid-teens, peaking at about 14. The appeal vanished with a beard, and adult men were scorned if they were a passive partner, because it was very manly to be the active partner when you're going at it with a boy. And then he goes on to say the tradition eroded in the late 19th century in reaction to Western abhorrence in efforts to modernize. So this was very common in these Islamic societies until the West got power and said, no, stop, no more of this. We're not trading with you. You keep doing this to boys. Like, seriously, it has to stop.
Just leave me and my boys alone. I'm just having fun here.
Seriously, like, dude, like that was a whole thing. And it's not only just that, they found it in like China, in India, in Australia, in the Americas, throughout Africa. It's like, as these missionaries going out, they're like, why are you guys having so much sex with children? Stop it. Like, it's like everywhere.
What else are we supposed to do between the goats and the kids? Hey, look at this. There's some weirdo made a super chat here.
Which one? The weirdest guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. What sort of Christian decides to team up with a mule-brained agnostic to review clips in a live stream? Which part of do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers wasn't clear? Shameful. You see? Shameful.
Shameful. Disgusting.
Super shameful. Well,
it's kind of funny. This is something that very, very few people would come and say to David sometimes.
Yes. Well, if David wasn't doing Jihad Report every Wednesday, I would have invited him, but I figured that's where he was tonight, was on his Jihad Report. If he wants to come in, I'll send him the link.
The funny thing is, this whole day I was I thought I'm supposed to go live tonight on David's channel, because we talked yesterday about this, and he said if he feels better tonight, then he'll do a live stream. And so I'm waiting here. The time for the live streaming has come. I'm sitting down, turning on my lights, and thinking, all right, I wonder what the topic is. And then I go on the channel and I realize that there is no scheduled live stream. And then I think, oh, he didn't even schedule one. So I got in touch with him and messaged him, and he said, I am a weakling. I'm a loser. I don't feel very good yet, but I will feel better tomorrow. Maybe if I'm not a weakling tomorrow, I will go live tomorrow, he said. So apparently he's sick right now, so he can't go live, which is why I had the opportunity to join your live stream. See?
You see? This is all part of Allah's plan to get you on here. Yes. He says, he says, my voice doesn't work. It's cracking even more than your normal voice. Well, that's pretty bad then. If it's cracking more than my normal voice is, there's no way he can come in here. It's going to be horribly pathetic. It's going to sound like he's in puberty. And we don't want to hear any of that. No one wants to hear someone when their voice cracks endlessly. Trust me, I know. It's awful. I went to an ENT, and like an ear, nose, and throat doctor, and I'm like, why does my voice crack so much? Because there's something wrong. So she like looked in my throat, put like a thing down my nose, and she's like, yeah, you're fine. You just suck. Like, I can't help you. Like, you just normal. She's like, maybe try like if you got like phlegm in your throat, get it out. Don't swallow it, kind of thing. And that was like the only advice I was given. Like, oh, great. This is wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's my problem.
Nice.
Let's see here. My main problem I have wrapping my head around with theistic evolution is that animals and human ancestors died before Adam and Eve. I guess since it's not from sin, did I already do that one? I feel like, yeah, I already did that one. Sorry.
I think so. Some people in the chat are falsely calling it ENT. It's actually ENT. It's
an ENT.
Yeah.
They're ENTs, guys. Yeah. Come on. And when I made that joke, she totally didn't get it. So I was very disappointed in her. And I was like, tree? You are no tree. And she looked at me like very confused. I'm like, wait, you've not seen it? Oh, okay. Sorry.
He said Nazi.
Yeah. If you ever go to an ENT, when they walk in the room, go, tree? You are no tree. If they get it, and probably won't, unfortunately. Bunch of nerds don't get the nerd joke.
I'm glad that David isn't here, because he would have had a very bad reaction to this joke.
Oh, he would have been like, oh, look at look at IP going on with his nerd talk of Lord of the Rings. Oh my God, knows what an ant is. If evolution is how he created, death exists when God says everything is good. Death isn't good until Christ dies and takes away the sting of death. So the problem with this is that look at what God says in Genesis 2. He says it's not good that the man is alone. Is he saying that it's not good before sin? That did God create the state? No, good, as John Walton points out, good is just a very general term. And when God says creation is very good in Genesis 1, he's just saying everything is functioning properly. It's not saying everything is perfect. That would, again, contradict what we see in Genesis 1:28, where man is called to subdue the earth. If it is perfect, why do humans need to go out and subdue creation? It should already be perfect. Everything should be absolutely wonderful. There's no predation. There's no weeds. It's all perfect. But no, I don't think that's what that follows from that term. And I don't know many scholars that think good means perfect, the state of without sin or any corruption or anything like that. Matter of Days by Dr. Hugh Ross is a good book defending biblical, historically and scientifically, an old earth view, though he disagrees with theistic evolution. I'm not dogmatic either way. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I disagree with Hugh Ross. I think evolution is just sort of like a scientific fact at this point. I don't see why we need to even fight against it when we can show Genesis is completely compatible. And I've debated young earth creationists like Hugh Ross on this, and I put up a view every time. Hey, listen, this is perfectly compatible with every essential Christian doctrine. I can even accept it in historical Adam and Eve, and it accepts all of evolution. So, like, what's the problem? Everything here is compatible.
Is Dr. Hugh Ross the guy who looks like a very nice skeleton or something?
Yes, he is. Yes, he's a very nice looking skeleton too. That's him. He's an astronomer, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Young earth creationist makes no sense literally reading scripturally. Adam and Eve clearly understand what death was when God warned them and Satan tempted. Why did God need to guard the tree? Generations and so yeah, it does seem to suggest Adam and Eve know what death is. So it seems like they've already experienced it so they can be warned. I mean, like, unless God did like a puppet show, like, like you'll be this and you'll fall over. Like, no, it probably, he did not think the implication is they already knew what death was. Why did God need to guard the tree? I think actually this kind of relates to my overall picture of what's going on in Genesis. I think the serpent is actually, it's a play on words. I think the author is telling us that what is actually there tempting them was a seraph. Because if you look at ancient Near Eastern depictions of seraphim, they're always depicted as winged serpents. So when Isaiah sees God on his throne, surrounded by seraph, he's seeing winged serpentine beings up there. And so scholars like Michael Heiser, Ben Stanhope have made this case that there's a rebellious seraph who's serpentine, who is sort of like tempting Eve and Adam to eat from the tree. And that seraph was actually maybe in charge of that tree and guarding it. And instead he's rebelling and he's now calling them to eat from it. And then when we see God kicks them out of Eden, he puts a cherub in there to guard the way back, kind of thing. Because you can't, as God says, you can't have sinful people eating from the tree and living forever. And I think that also tells us Adam and Eve were mortal. The only way they obtained immortality was access to this supernatural tree God created. It wasn't that they were ever thought of as immortal prior to the fall, because why would God need to cut them off? He could just kick them out, like turn them into mortals. Like, so
powerful.
Evening, Mike. When you giving David Wood his voice back? This is getting weird. Even Ridvan's nice flat cap evolution. Only real evidence is adaptation. I shook his voice. Yeah, that was part of my evil plan. Showed up at his house.
You see, they're admitting it now.
Use my black magic. All the Muslims know I use. Yes, all part of my evil plan. I'll give it back to him when he stops making fun of my nerd hobbies. How about that? He agrees to start making fun of my nerd hobbies like Lord of the Rings. And the fact that I've read the Silmarillion twice, I'll give his voice back. How many times has David Wood read the Silmarillion? 0? Loser. I bet he can't even spell Silmarillion. Remember Joe's joke about cult religions? Religion is just a cult with time, and the guy is dead. What is the difference between a cult and a religion? Yeah, that was an older stream. He made that. The religions are just cults plus time, I think. Which, I mean, like, I kind of see the point, because, like, you could even talk about the way scholars talk about cult is, of course, different than the way lay people talk about cult, though. Like, we'll talk about cultic practices in Israel or the cult of Yahweh. It doesn't mean like what we think of cult, like a people living in like a bomb shelter, getting ready for the aliens to come. It just is like a religious belief. So I think
Jim Jones, best cult ever.
best cult ever. And he wasn't, and he was actually an atheist. People think he was a Christian. He was actually an atheist,
Yeah, he was initially a Christian,
Pentecostal, and then he
yeah,
left. Yeah,
and then he slowly switched over toward claiming that he actually has transcended and is aware of the real truth and the real message, and then he started actively denouncing and ridiculing Christianity, and turned into an atheist, which of course was a brilliant ground to turn himself into an object of worship, and eventually had everybody killed. What a funny guy!
pretty much. Love the part about
That's what I'm planning to with my community.
oh man, that'd be great. The ex-Muslim cult. Oh
Yeah.
man, love the part about how, e.g., the sycamore tree verifies the author's use of local accounts. Such details makes me almost feel personally connected to Luke. Does Luke mention a sycamore tree? What am I thinking of? Or what are you thinking of there? I don't know. Oh, with Zacchaeus, they climbed the sycamore tree. Yeah, that he knew those trees grew in that area. Yeah, there's a lot of little details like that in Luke that he somehow gets right. Like he gets a lot of like interesting little detail. Like people don't realize how crazy the political landscape was during the time when Jesus was born to basically the end of Acts. And like Luke sort of like tiptoes through that and makes like incredible, like it's incredible. Like he gets all like the political changes right for the most part. Like people get upset about the census of Quirinius, but if you just sort of go back, let me see if I can put this up here and just play this section of my video here. Let's see, where is it? This is in my video, Luke and Eyewitness account. The way he sort of just goes through stuff here is pretty phenomenal.
Herod the Great up until around 60 AD. The problem is this period is incredibly complicated. First, Herod the Great rules a united kingdom, but then it's divided between his three sons. Herod Archelaus is never certified as king, but is allowed to reign. Then Archelaus makes a mess of Judea and is deposed. Judea is reduced to a Roman province run by prefects, but the religious leaders are still allowed some rule in military power. This lasted until Herod Agrippa was given kingship of the region. He reigned for a few years before dying and is replaced by procurators. However, later Herod Agrippa II is given some power in Judea, but it's limited. The whole issue is very confusing and befuddles even some Roman historians. But Luke easily navigated through this complicated mess, where it would be easy to make a mistake.
Yeah, it's very interesting what the kind of details Luke gets right. That's one of my favorite ones because he just somehow didn't mess any of that up. Like he gets political change. Like he's like, yeah, and Pilate was ruling at this time, and then it was all of a sudden Herod Agrippa the first comes along for a little bit, and then he's just gone, and procurators show up, and then Herod Agrippa the second shows up towards the end. It's like he really somehow managed to get a lot of that kind of stuff right. IP, do you think you will talk to Graham Hancock this year? IP, you do. Also, can we get a book tour and new books on the website? I'll try to do something with the new books on the website. I can do let me see here. How far can I zoom out? Let's see. There's my books. Okay. There's most of them. As you can see, I'm still filling the shelves up. And I still need to do more because I was buying a bunch of ebooks for a while, and then I got new bookshelves, and now I'm like, well, now I got more bookshelves I need to fill up, so I will start going hardcover again.
You could just do my idea. I had this idea, which I still think is a brilliant idea, that I want to set up a bookshelf behind me, but then I just want to put my Kindle device on there.
That'd be great. Yeah. Great job, AP, with Aidan Doyle. Only Nadir Ahmed and Flat Earthers debate him. Give me visceral reaction. Also to Aidan and all who hold his position. Well done. What's he talking about?
Thank you. Well, Aidan Doyle is he's a UCLA pro-Palestine encampment leader guy that I debated the other day, and he was really bad. So Thank you, Mr. Thank you, Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Much appreciated. Joe Schmidt's critique of the Old Testament in his 14 mistakes video, mistake 167, is one of the most difficult I've seen. Keep me up at night. Can you respond? I'd have to look at it. Yeah, I've not seen it yet, but I'll take a look. I think there are some like scribal mistakes I did in the Old Testament, like in 2 Samuel when it talks about like Elhanan killing Goliath. Obviously, David did. I think that's a scribal mistake. It's supposed to be the brother of Goliath. So some things like that I think have happened. Billy is kicking his emerald tablets and cursing in Sumerian right now. Yes, all the Sumerian he knows off the top of his head. He knows so much Sumerian. That's another thing is like they brought up the fact that like Sumerian is like it's incredibly hard to learn, yet somehow Billy claims he can read Sumerian. Like you'd be like one of the few in the world that can read it.
What's the name of that one scholar again? Of that one guy? It's kind of it's awkward because I know him personally, and I also had him on
Josh
my channel. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I wonder if he would ever, or if he ever reacted to Billy Carson or said anything about him.
I think he has occasionally here and there. I know he's reacted to Zachariah Sitchin. It's one of Billy's main sources for all this nonsense. I don't know if he's reacted to anything Billy recently did. Probably will in the future. Would AP accept a chip from a Muslim in his head?
No.
Can't imagine why. Did you start like pumping the Quran into you 24/7? You bored out of your mind all day. I don't know what to believe at the moment, but I do believe you guys are good guys. AP, you're inspirational. Love you too, IP. Much appreciated. Glad you're here, sir.
Thank you.
I don't buy your. I don't know. You have to say it.
I don't buy your Ella. Okay. I don't buy your Ella.
That was so good. That was amazing. Oh man, I can't laugh because my cough comes back. After God created the heavens and the earth, God said to his creation it was good. Evolution involves suffering and physical death. Does that mean God thinks suffering and physical death is good? Again, I go back to what I said earlier about what Genesis 1:28 says about subduing the earth, and good only means it's functioning properly. Check out the book by John Walton, The Lost World of Genesis 1. He covered this in more detail. 1 second. AP's trying to kill me, so I had to fix that.
Powerful.
Why do some atheists treat the Bible like a Christian whom is against science? Why is it always like the most fundamental surface level reading? It's not all of them. It is a lot of the online atheists that are like, yeah, they'll do that kind of stuff where it's like that was happening recently in the Alex O'Connor debate. Like his opponent was like, Genesis teaches there's a firmament and teaches that like, the sun was created before was created after plants. And it's like, well, no, that's not what's going on. Like Genesis 1 is very it's very like trying to parallel, like day 1 and day 4 are meant to go together. It's the light and the stars, and then day 2 is the sky and the sea, and then day 5 is the animals that inhabit them, and then day 3 is the land, and day 6 is the land animals and humans. It's trying to do this parallelism. It's not trying to give you chronological order. People tend to miss that, I think. So I think it's just an easy way for people to dismiss it. They don't have to think hard about it. Just be like, yeah, just not going to think too much about this ancient text, and we just get rid of it. You just suck. Great doctor advice. Well, I mean, she didn't say that, but that was like my interpretation of it.
That's literally what she said.
Literally. I should have Mike Lacona on, and then we'll both just squeak the whole time. Like, because his voice is squeaks too. And his name is Mike, and he's super tall. So, like, we could be a great duo. Just the squeakers.
That's interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, his voice cracks all the time like mine. We should do a podcast together called The Squeakers. There's my $1 million idea. Mike and Mike squeaking together again.
That's nice.
You know, this interview was big when Ray Comfort joins in on the fun. Oh, did he? Trying to get that guy. Ray Comfort. Banana Man.
Yeah, what happened with him?
I guess he may have been tweeting about it or talking about it. Maybe did a video about it. I don't know. Who knows?
That is interesting.
Yeah. IP, how do you deal with discouragement? I recently made an apologetic vid and tons of atheists accused me of dishonesty. Many missed the point of the vid. Listen, they're going to do that, man. Like, lately, the atheist community has very much been like, if you make a mistake, it's not because you misremembered a fact or you got something wrong. It's because you're incredibly dishonest and you want to lie to protect your apologetics, because the entire apologetic endeavor is so dishonest. It's all it is dishonesty, dishonest. Like, that's just their new shtick now. It's all what it's about. It's like, we just got to show so much that they are dishonest, and it's really just getting, I would say, to deal with the discouragement, like, accept that people are, except that that's sort of the way, like, people tend to be. They don't really want to, so what I'm thinking of here, they don't really want to extend charity. That's what I was trying to get to. They want a reason to dismiss you. And remember, they're going to be very tribal. People are naturally tribal. I've seen Christians do that to atheists. I've seen atheists do that to Christians. Just remember, first of all, as a Christian, your identity is what Christ tells you you are, not what people in the public tell you are. And remember also that Christ said, no servant is above his master. If they hated me, they're going to hate you. If they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you. So just remember, when that happens, this is what Christ said was going to happen. He's telling you you're going to go through these things. So buckle up. This is what he wants his church to go through, not because he hates us, because he knows it's going to help get the gospel out. It's going to help with soul building, these kinds of things. He went through it. He's going to expect us to do it. Remember, they're attacking Christ in you, not you. So try to keep those in mind when you're doing that, and just keep pushing forward, because you'll eventually make some dents in Satan's kingdom, and that's the ultimate goal. That he wants you to give up, and he's going to try to use that kind of stuff to get you to give up, but don't give in.
Powerful.
IP Steve O from, is that really? No, that's going to bother me. Steve O from Jackass has the same problem with his voice box. Could be genetic. Yeah, I get it. Right now, I'm riding this great wave of having a slight, like, sore throat. So, like, I'm just going to keep it up as long as I can.
I kind of like the idea that you brought up of having a show together with Mike Licona, but you should call it something better, like the Squeaky Mike Show or something like that.
Squeaky Mike Show. I love it. Oh, yeah, we should do that. That's perfect. Good evening. Has David Wood changed his hair? No, he got much sexier looking. What are you talking about? That's what happened. You see this? See this jawline here? This is what happens when you wake up in the morning and look spectacular. Thank you, Imagines Keynes, for the very generous super chat. Thanks for everything you do. Much appreciated. Ezra asked, or says, now we need to get IP on the Joe Rogan. Yeah, I wanna go on there. I think AP would do great on there. You can talk about all the ex-Muslim stuff and how the fact that the apostasy death sentence and all that stuff would be great for him to kind of put out there.
Joe Rogan is too afraid to have me on. He's scared.
Too afraid? He's scared.
Running.
Somebody told me that it's hard to, like, just, you can't go up to Joe and just, hey, have this person on, because apparently Joe's psychology, the moment he hears that, he doesn't want to do it. It's got to be like his idea.
That makes sense. I can imagine.
Yeah. Split this and buy each other yourself elevators for your mansion. You're right. I do need an elevator for my mansion. I just put in the 5th air conditioning unit, and my chef and my butler were like, finally, we needed one on this side of the house.
Which,
you know
mansion? I have many.
Dude, that was what Billy Carson kept doing in his like 3-hour live stream, is he was trying to talk about how much of a victim he is. Like, they're coming after me. They're trying to ruin my reputation, as I was telling my chef the other day. And then I took my elevator up to the loft and was taking a nap in my private movie theater. And then I went out to the tennis court, and the pool boy was out. He's talking about his mansion has 5 air conditioning units. And we're all like, oh, you poor thing. I feel so bad for you.
Oh, poor guy. Didn't his wife come out and mention that he's paid like tons of money per speech or something whenever he goes out and speaks somewhere? And it's so ridiculous, isn't it? Like you go out and you give some completely weird speeches about how Jesus was half alien and half human, and you had an interaction with aliens, and they tried to invite you and take you with them, and something about pyramids and clowns and so on, and people actually make you famous for that and give you tons of money for this nonsense. For this complete nonsense. Well, you can spend your life talking about actually useful things and won't get anywhere near that recognition. Like it's the world is interesting.
Yeah, people like the sensationalist nonsense. Yeah. Y'all should do a stream where people watching can join and discuss various topics. Could be fruitful and chaotic. I talked to Avery about maybe doing something like that eventually. I don't know. I got to really think it through. I'm sure my social media coordinator, Matt, would love for me to do something like that. But I'm like, I may go on Avery's a couple more times before I do that, before I decide I want to do it.
I challenge you to go on there one more time. Sorry, I'm just doing as we speak, Cameron, Capturing Christianity, just sent me a message and said, challenge, run out of breath the rest of the stream. He's what he means is I should be like Mohammed Hijab when he goes on there and he goes
My favorite part was when we were on Avery's stream. Like we did this, the first guy that came on was like, I want to talk about child marriage. And then we made a big long like spiel about how that's all Muslims want to talk about. Then the second guy that gets on is like, yeah, I want to talk about child marriage.
man.
Have you IP'd yourself today? Well, you should, and you should think of me when you do it. That's the way to do it. Anyone else think it's weird that Joe was wearing the same t-shirt in the interview with Wes as in the old clip? Was he? Let me see here.
Was he?
Well, it's like a black t-shirt, and then no, it's not this. Is it the same? Oh, it is. It is the exact same one. Yes, the tiger is on it. Like, is the exact like here? I'll show everyone here. Let's go to this one. There's Joe with that tiger t-shirt on. Yeah, and then we go back to Joe, and we go to. Let me find an earlier spot. There is the same tiger t-shirt there.
What the hell? What?
He's like,
how did that happen?
He's got the same t-shirt for 10 years. What sort of primitive person are we talking about?
You can't even afford a shirt.
My t-shirt like randomly started getting holes in it. I guess I could pick up my cats too much and then I have to get rid of them. So yeah, I have to get new t-shirts every so often.
Powerful.
AP and IP Infinite Aura names. God bless you guys.
Yes.
I think evolution carries some stigma for some Christians because it feels diminishing to the special idea of being handcrafted by God. Yeah, I kind of get that, but I think at the end of the day, we need to follow the data and not let our emotions get in the way. I don't see any problem with having an evolutionary history here.
Mm-hmm.
How can we reach people who believe in some sort of spirituality but not God? I think you need to ask them, like, what is their actual grounding for these types of things? Like, why do they believe them? Is it because they have good evidence for it, or is it because it makes them feel powerful and special? Like what is the actual evidence for their position, and can they account for the evidence of Christianity? And can they also make really cool triangle signs? That's very important as well. But yeah, I would say
didn't see that. Yeah.
No, I mean, I would say like start asking them just simple questions about like why they believe what they believe. Try to get into their own psychology and understand where they're coming from, so you can be a better witness to them. And if they think their spirituality can actually save them, or if it's just going to be more work-based salvation seeking stuff.
Powerful.
Any resources on dispensationalism versus covenant theology? Starting to delve deep into theology after finally getting serious about my faith. Big thanks to reconciling faith and science. Yeah, I'm not. I don't know if those are the only two options. I think I'm in covenant. I'm not a dispensationalist. I know that. I think there's more of like there's more progression for sure in terms of how God reveals stuff and adds things and fulfills stuff. But I'm not into dispensationalism. I would recommend a great book called He Shall Have Dominion. But I think it's Country, I think, is the author, but He Shall Have Dominion is a great book on my specific views related to that. AP, your Jordan Peterson invitation makes me laugh.
I'm happy to hear that.
IP, what do you think of the evidence of God through ghosts and demons? There's a channel called Watcher. They used to work for BuzzFeed. Best evidence of ghosts I've ever seen. Ghost hunting bad. I mean, like, if there is evidence of ghosts, I don't think that'd be incompatible with Christianity. I mean, even C.S. Lewis thought ghosts could be the souls of like dead humans. They don't go to like hell. They just have their own personal hell being left on earth to roam kind of thing. Yeah. So, I mean, like, if there's evidence for that, I think it'd just be evidence that there's something beyond the natural, that there is some sort of life after death, or there are other spirits here interacting with us. I just think it would just be more of a problem for naturalism than anything else.
I only believe in Ghost in the Shell.
Who? Ask AP if he watched my video where I proved that atheism is silly.
I haven't, because I don't know what you're talking about. But
I just posted it today.
Oh, then I will have to be challenged to watch it.
Challenged. He's been challenged, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't watched it either. I've been trying to get ready for this stream and finish my dang script on how Christianity saved children. Do you think Islam and Christianity can live in peace in the West ultimately, or will Islam always dominate? I don't think they can live in peace, especially if Islam starts to dominate. Then we have run into problems. I don't know, AP. What are your thoughts?
Islam is not a religion that is designed to coexist with other religions. It is a religion that is fundamentally all about getting rid of or subjugating all the other religions and dominating them, and with the aim of even when it coexists with the others and even when it tolerates the others as subjects, the aim is ultimately, as you can read in chapter 9, verse 29 and 30 in the Quran, to subjugate and humiliate them, and thereby basically pressure them into leaving their religions and becoming Muslims. And historically, that's also how it was generally applied. Muhammad himself said, verified by Islamic standards, deemed authentic, that he has been sent to fight the people, meaning the disbelievers, until they testify that there is no God but Allah and that he is the messenger of Allah. So being part of another religion like Christianity or Judaism is not doesn't quite cut it. You have to be subjugated and then slowly let go of your religion and convert to Islam. Islam is supposed to make sure of that. And because of this nature, this hostile, dominance-oriented nature that Islam has, it's simply not possible to have it grow and coexist with it.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think that's one of the biggest problems with Islam, is that it is a dominating religion. It's fine when you have a country like the U.S. right now with like less than 1% Islam, but when they start to get a little bit more popularity, a little more growth, like around 10%, then they start to form their own little knit communities. They start to use that and try to assert power, like we're seeing in Britain right now, and that's a problem, because again, their goal is, as AP said, is domination, conquering, turning Christians to dhimmis, taking people like AP out, and like we can't live in peace when these are embedded in the major part of the religion. Now, if the majority of Muslims were like Sufi or things like Ismaili, that may be different because they have more mystical understandings of things, but these are very small minority groups in the full of Islam. We're gonna play paper football. And yeah, it's they're going, like, if that's just not the overwhelming majority of the Muslims out there, and then so we're going to keep seeing this power struggle, which is not going to help people in the West ultimately.
That's true.
After seeing him in a tight t-shirt, I think Wesley Huff should change his name to Wesley Buff.
He should.
Yeah, I'm sure. I wonder if they were having conversations behind the scenes about like creatine or something. because they're both like obviously lifters or something. Like Wesley, like I feel like he could like bench press me. I'm trying to think where there's a shot of them like kind of like at the table together. I can't find it though, but yeah, it's like he's got really big, like dang,
Huge.
not fair. Not fair at all. UK here. AP, how does a place like the UK begin to start dealing with Islamic beliefs? We are cowering in fear from democratic laws. What do you think will happen?
Well, democratic laws were put in place for people who shared the values of those people who, under whose or in whose lands ideas of democracy were fostered, and where democracy, where liberty flourished. It wasn't meant to include those cultures that are intolerant of it and hostile toward it. Once you have made the mistake of mass importing a culture that is hostile toward your fundamental values, you have already lost. You have already lost control. I would say it's partly too late. You're already past a point of no return, and in the future there will be probably great difficulties of separatism, political, separatism, of fighting, of territorial separatism, and things like that. It would be good if we didn't see a war or something in the future. I think the good thing would be to make sure to put certain bans in place, because you have made mistakes and you need to correct those mistakes. So put certain bans in place, abolish certain aspects of the democratic liberties and freedoms that you have, and possibly also looking into deporting lots of people, especially those who have committed crimes or who have declared intentions to commit crimes. There should be no stigma attached to deporting people. You have to do it if you want to preserve yourselves.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems is the declining birth rates in Britain, because like the native British population is not producing a replacement population, and so they're bringing in immigrants to fill those jobs they need. And who are they bringing in? Muslims. Maybe they should look elsewhere, like South America, Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa. I don't know, but bringing in the Islamics is not going to help them in the long run.
Yeah.
I mean, Billy Carson.
You could have. Look, lots of Western countries have Indian immigrants, and they are statistically seen overachievers. Many of them are statistically doing even better than the native population in terms of education and work and contribution and all that. I understand that some people just say, just leave us alone, we just want to be pure and all that. But if you make the argument that you have to invite some people that will do the work, then at least invite people from places that don't have really damaging cultures and really damaging ideologies and beliefs, which will eventually be the noose that will hang you.
Yeah. I mean, like even Japan is pretty selective in who they bring in. Like they're very, very, they don't want to bring in Muslims. Like they're very, very open about that. And so, yeah, there's a reason for that. I mean, honestly, I think the West has forgotten the years they fought against the Muslim East, and that's affecting them now, because there was this big long conflict, and all of a sudden the West got like super secular and super like, we're now super friendly, and they're like, just come on in. Like, did you forget what the Spaniards did in Iberia? Did you forget what the Greeks have dealt with and the people in the Balkans dealt with? I mean, like, there's a reason the knights were being sent to fight these kind of wars. There was a reason the Muslims were at the gates of Vienna in the 1600s. There's pretty scary stuff.
And the Spanish, they were pushed into a corner for centuries and tried to reclaim and fight back and reclaim and fight back. They fought. It was seemingly an endless struggle to take back the land. They took it back eventually and said, okay, we are done with this. Everybody out. This is our land now. So, and then Fast forward, suddenly it's like, hey guys, let's just all you guys who tried to conquer us and rape us, just how about come in? Let's talk.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm doing some research on that a little bit for relating to my script on slavery. But like when they went into Granada, when Isabella finally got the army in there was like hundreds of like Christian slaves and starving to death in the dungeons under Granada. And then she did have some of the Muslims, they were enslaved. However, she did start to make advances. Like she outlawed slavery in new Spanish territories. She said Native Americans could not be enslaved unless they were hostile or cannibals. Like she actually did even try to like limit the reach of slavery and try to diminish its effects. So she gets kind of a bad rap. She did some bad things for sure, but she actually did try to make some advances to diminish the effects of slavery.
Powerful.
Billy Carson is the Kanye West of biblical critics. Well, he's not an avid racist, but I get kind of what you're getting at there. Thank you for the heart. Much appreciated. David and AP rap battle when? When are you having the rap battle with David Wood?
Soon.
Soon, better be. We're all waiting. We're all waiting for this epic rap battle. You could do the Jordan Peterson rap.
I could.
Does Matthew 24:37 disprove postmillennialism? No, I don't think it does. So that says, for as they were, as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. We read right after that, though, for in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying, giving in marriage, until the day of Noah entered the ark, and they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. He's not saying it'll be like the days of Noah in that it'll be just filled with sin. It's that they will be so sudden and unexpected. No one will see it coming. So it's just going to happen one day, and no one's going to be like waiting on a hillside kind of thing. My 2 cents, whether Islam can live in peace in the West depends on a variety of Islam, e.g. that of, I don't know how to say that, but do you know who that is?
Is it an ambulation? No, who's that? I don't know.
Let me look it up here.
I have no idea who that is.
Yeah, Islam. Man, that is
who in the world is this? Izzeldin Abuleish, Palestinian medical doctor and writer.
Nah, I've not heard of him. Maybe he was anti-Hamas, perhaps. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It says he was born and raised in a refugee camp in the Gaza Strip.
Didn't he debate somebody? His face looks familiar to me. I don't know.
He was one of the few Gazans to continue entering Israel regularly after Hamas took over. But it doesn't really say anything else in related to Hamas on this page. So I don't know much about him.
I don't know. You can just say blanket no. That's it. How about that?
That works. It wouldn't be a Joe Rogan episode if Joe didn't spend half the time talking about dark matter with linguistic biblical scholar just chirping. It was a great episode. Yeah, I hope he brings me on. I'll talk to him about that. I'll talk to him about DMT. I'll talk to him about Rick Strauss because I read Rick Strauss's book. It's interesting. If you know what Rick Strauss was doing with DMT?
No.
So he got approval from the government in New Mexico to give patients DMT. And what he found convinced him that DMT was taking people to another dimension, because the people kept coming back and reporting very similar experiences with very similar beings, like elvish looking creatures. They were talking to them or doing experiments on them. And he said like that people were corroborating others' experiences. So that's why he actually argues in the book that DMT is somehow taking you to another plane of existence, was what he was arguing.
That sounds very I mean, I don't want to presume. It sounds very simplistic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it I don't know. It was an interesting book. I didn't fully agree with him. I'm not sure where I would land on that, but yeah. And so I don't know. I'd have to go back and double check to see what he actually argues that they're having similar experiences. But when I read it, they weren't exactly the same, but they like reported contact with like elvish creatures apparently or something.
Yeah. So what you told me kind of is in line with what I heard before about it, and it just maybe I'm just not familiar with the argument and the research and all that, but it just I can't quite understand how that is an argument. But I probably have to familiarize myself with it.
Thank you for the super chat from John the Presbyter.
Powerful.
IP, I've never taken communion as a Christian. Am I cooked? Well,
Yes.
you should definitely take communion, and you make sure there's wine. Don't go to a grape juice church. It's you gotta get to the place for a wine. I mean, like, I don't see why you why wouldn't you? There's no excuse for someone who professing Christian to not partake of the Eucharist. Like, do it. Get baptized and go do it, man. Like, there's nothing stopping you.
What if you drink grape juice instead?
It's not the Eucharist.
Oh.
Sorry, some Protestants. Not all Protestants, but some. I believe in Christianity. I just don't like churches. Everyone is weird, and the seats my butt itchy. Am I doomed to hell? Well, you're in luck because AP's wife is Orthodox, and there's no seats there. Like, you stand, so you don't got an excuse. You can go to Orthodox church and just stand. I don't see what the problem is.
Powerful.
You got this, and find a good one. Try an Orthodox church. Try a Lutheran. I was just interviewed by a Lutheran today. Lutheran Answers. That should come out soon. Or Anglican or Catholic. Try some of these churches.
You don't say what you are, right?
No, I keep that private.
Okay.
I'll tell you later.
Okay.
The Council of Peas. I see AP. Where's BP? In the Gulf of Mexico. Soon to be the Gulf of America. So I read that and I was like, this is obviously a troll post. Trump didn't say that. And then I checked and Yahoo News was reporting it. Trump wants to change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. I'm like,
I feel like he's just trolling until he's in office.
Yeah, I think you're right. I hope
he wants to take the last days the opportunity to troll a little bit before he becomes the president.
Dude, he tweeted a map of like North America with like the capital of the US, the capital of Greenland, but not the capital of Canada. Wink, wink. You troll.
And he was asked if he was asked about ruling out the military option for taking over Greenland and the Panama Canal, and he said, "Well, I can't rule it out."
Yeah.
What?
Power corrupts, therefore secularism is the truth. Do you see the proof?
This is true. Yeah. Powerful.
Hey, P, are you finished with your MA? Yeah, I finished it like 2 years ago. And when do you pursue a doctoral work? Bless you and your family, AP and his family. Whenever I get the money / time. Right now, I have neither. So yeah, that's the main problem. Enter Ali. Okay, he is known for writing "I Shall Not Hate: Agaza's Doctor's Journey on the Road to Peace and Human Dignity." Okay, yeah, sounds interesting. I'm not
interested.
I heard it. IP, may God make you be like Michael the Archangel against Satan lies. Also, Iraq is trying to legalize child marriage right now, 9 years old. Yeah, well, what are you surprised? This is what happens when Muslims get very into their religion and get power. They immediately go to all sorts of horrible, harmful practices: polygamy, child marriage, apostasy laws. It's all the same nonsense.
It's Trident based.
Yeah, I'm gonna do a video probably next year, AP, on how Islam hindered the growth of science, like how they helped it and then hindered it. I got some interesting research I found. I need to put that together. IP, have you done research on countries that were never colonized by Europe or had major Christian cultures like Japan? No, but I have done research on missionary effects. So you check out my video, How Christianity Changed the World. I looked at specific places in India, China, and Africa where there was very strong missionary presence, and they compared them with other places in like India or Africa, and just the comparisons are nowhere near. Like one of the papers I looked at like girl health in India compared to like Muslim girls. You know, Christian girls were far healthier, taller. Same with like in Africa, they looked at like another study looked at like girls in Islamic regions or just people in Christian regions versus people in Islamic regions. Found there was more education, more literacy in the Christian regions.
Japan did have significant Christian missionary movement, not comparable to some other countries, I guess, but they did have quite some missionary activities through trade, through the explorers, the Portuguese, later on the others, and so on, which is how a Japanese branch of Christianity was also formed.
Yeah, and then they shut down Japan and killed them all after the shogun took over.
Powerful.
John Wesley would disagree with you on the grape juice. Well, I don't agree with John Wesley. I think John Wesley is wrong. I was baptized by cult Pentecostals, but never took communion. Can I make my own communion at home? I don't think so. I think you need to go to somebody who can actually has had the laying of hands on it in an apostolic line. So again, like Orthodox, Catholic, Lutheran, Anglican is what I would recommend. Coptic.
How do you do communion on your own?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I know you can baptize. So if two atheists are together and one was like, I want to be a Christian, baptize me, it's a valid baptism. But I don't know about communion, if that is valid or not. That's
Can
a
you
good question.
do communion over VR?
Maybe. I'd have to think about that. I don't have to research a little bit more to know about what the rules are for communion. If you need apostolic succession or not, because I don't know. Great stream tonight. Keep up the good work. Thank you. I sympathize with money, time for a doctorate. I haven't earned my MA yet, but I'm going to take a financial advisor for my PhD funding program. Yeah. Is playing a casino a sin? I'm not addicted. I just like to win and put my money on the green. I also like super unicorn slots. I mean, if it's not an addiction, I don't know. I would be very, I don't really know. I mean, like I've been in poker games where we put $20 in and then just play with chips, and I won. I was proud of myself. But yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I think you gotta be very careful with that kind of stuff. I think if you're just doing it for just a little play here and there, you take $100 to play a game of poker, I think you're fine. I just don't make it an addiction. I think that's when it's like alcohol. Everything in moderation. Slowly narrowing down your denomination. No, I've told people before, I attend a high church. Could be high Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, Coptic. I'm not low church Protestant anymore. I've left that. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
What is a high church? What does that mean? I don't know anything.
So you kind of like follow the ancient pattern of worship. You believe in like the real presence. You follow traditional aspects, liturgy. So more sacraments are involved, more of the traditional high church kind of setting, not like low church where it's like some guys up there in a jeans and a button up, or, the high churches, there's more reverence, more ritual, more respect, more liturgy, that kind of stuff. I guess the simplest way I can sort of explain it. Love your work, but I disagree on the grape juice. Jesus said it's not what goes in that defiles you. Presbyterian, but the denomination does not save you. Yeah, that's in a different context. And he specifically says the wine is his blood, not the grape substance. And you just it's like you can't substitute bread for like apples. He said bread and wine. That's what we use in communion, not grape juice, not vinegar, bread and wine. So that's right. So you guys did it. You guys met the super chat goal. I'm going to now show you a sneak peek of my upcoming video that I promised I would show you. This one is coming out a couple days here. It's on Homer, and you guys are going to love it. So let me pull this up.
Could it be that you've misunderstood the entire point of the Gospels? The scholar Dennis MacDonald thinks so. Instead of the Gospels aiming to tell us about the historical Jesus, they were trying to rework the epics of Homer to create theological fiction. Jesus was modeled after characters like Odysseus and Hector from Homer's epics. The Gospels were never intended to be history. Mark was an artist uninhibited in his creation of theological fiction. Luke created each of these stories as fiction to imitate or emulate famous stories in the Iliad and without the benefit of pre-existing traditions. Therefore, we need to stop believing the Gospels are historical records of who Jesus was. They are just fictional works. MacDonald lists several places where he thinks the Gospels intentionally rework stories from Homer to support his theory. But when we evaluate his claims, we encounter numerous problems. There is a reason the majority of scholars who have reviewed his work come away rejecting his ideas. And as we cover some examples, you'll see why the Gospels are not theological fiction based on Homer.
All right, so there's the video coming out Friday. It's
Big.
gonna be kind of long. I'm so sick of hearing that the Gospels copied, or not copied, but imitated Homer. I'm using a sensationalist title. I admit that the Gospels plagiarize Homer, even though McDonald doesn't say that. I will note that in the video description. But yeah, it's that's coming out Friday. Late. I've been working on that for a while, and yeah, there's going to be probably a lot of pushback, I would suspect.
McDonald's is not healthy anyway.
No, you know his middle name is Ronald. I have to like remind myself not to bring that up when I'm discussing him because it'll be rude. I'm like, yes, and you believe Dennis Ronald McDonald? Like, it's yeah, it's unfortunate because I think he was like born in the 40s, so like before that was a thing.
Oh, yeah, okay.
But yeah, I'll be responding to some of his stuff soon, and then I got some more stuff planned next week from that, which we'll get to, which should be kind of fun. But yeah, that's what I got coming out.
That's interesting stuff.
Yeah, even like Bart Ehrman does not follow him on that stuff. It's very, very fringe. Like very few scholars like really just buy into that. But he's convinced the Gospels are theological fictions imitating Homer. I don't get it. I don't have wine. Can I use Johnny Walker for communion? No. You see, Soldier of Christ. This is what I'm talking about. You can't substitute with whatever you want, whether it's Johnny Walker or grape juice. You can't. It's wine. Wine. This is what Jesus said. Okay. Let's just do what he said. Let's not try to like, well, I could do it better. Communion is about the heart. Otherwise, how do you explain missionaries? Nowhere does scripture specify what you said. It says wine. I'm sorry. This is what Jesus said. This is what the church has used for the longest time until very recently. All of a sudden, people were like, grape juice. And the grape juice thing comes out of like what is that? The prohibition movement, because they want to get away from alcohol. It's like, there's no reason for this. You should talk to Gavin Ortland about Baptists. Maybe I will. Hey, Michael, I do not wish to annoy you with the question, why is eating animal meat not morally wrong? And why should we be vegan? Thank you. And I appreciate your work. Well, I'm not convinced that it is morally wrong. For one thing, I don't want to make a naturalistic fallacy, but it is part of nature, which would be, I would say, more surprising if it was morally wrong. Well, maybe I think it's less. I think the fact that eating meat, the fact that it's throughout nature makes it less surprising that on the whole moral issue there. So I think that's the case. I don't understand why it would be morally wrong. Because I don't think animals are on the same cognitive levels. I don't think animals are forming words in their heads to form like thoughts. Like, I really don't want someone to eat me. I don't think an animal says that in its thought, because I don't think they have the brain power to actually form words or sentences. Like we've taught like some gorillas or some orangutan sign language. None of them have ever asked a question, as far as I can tell, or as I've researched. Like, we're the only creatures that are like actually using our cognitive faculties to say things like why or how or what. I think there's a lot lower. So in terms of that, I think that does sort of change their conscious experience. Also, I remember talking to a dairy farmer about this. He said, like, listen, if cows lived in the wild, they'd live 5 years. They'd either die and they'd get eaten. They'd either be eaten by predators or bacteria, but they would get eaten. So we put them in here. They live about the same length of time, roughly 5 years. And then we kill them quickly, humanely. And then we use them for meat. What's the problem with that? Like, I'm not, I think some, like, I think, like some forms might be harmful, but like, what is the baby cow stuff called? That meat from baby cows. I forget what it's called, but like that, I don't eat that, for example, because I think that's wrong. No, you cannot use pizza and root beer for communion. Well, I guess you could use the bread part if you have to, but be a little more respectful. Because you're in a high church. What is your take on Mary's perpetual virginity? No comment. Not talking about that right now. AP looks really handsome with that cool hat on. Also, imagine if IP got a low taper fade. What's your favorite prime flavor? What is prime flavor?
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is prime flavor? I don't know.
I don't know. And the young people and their weird haircuts and their stuff, and their prime flavors. Respectfully, as a Canadian, what the frick is going on in America? Don't you know?
Well, we are preparing for the invasion of Canada, so better get ready.
Yeah, that's what's going on, dude. Get ready. What are you gonna do? You don't have guns anymore.
Bunch of weaklings.
What should I do if my church uses grape juice? It's the only real issue I have with my church. The explanation they give is that they don't want it to be a stumbling block for recovering alcoholics. Well, what we do at our church is we have like things of water with a drop of wine in it, and that is good enough. I mean, honestly, I would talk to them about it. Maybe try and visit another church once in a while, perhaps one that's going to do real communion. That's what I would say. But I mean, like, I don't see why they can't have. If you have to compromise, why can't they do wine and grape juice? Like, why do they just have to do grape juice? Jesus ate fish. Old Testament priests ate meat. Yeah, good point. A church close to me has a very strong alcohol and drug recovery program and focus, so they use grape juice. What are your thoughts on recovering alcoholics with communion? Well, I said we do the water with one drop, and we've never had a problem with the some recovering alcoholics in ours. So no tequila for Eucharist. Correct. Agree with you on the wine, not laying it one in the hands. Fair enough. Yeah.
What about
Fair
Jack
enough.
Daniels?
What's that?
What about Jack Daniels?
Oh yeah, totally. Do the Jack Daniels. What could possibly go wrong? You think you can lose your salvation by not doing good enough, not doing enough good? No, I don't think you can. AP looks like Diddy grandpa with that hat on. IP, can you start wearing a do-rag? You only wear do-rag. My white ass wears a do-rag. I don't think so.
Nice.
Yeah. No. Go back to AP's channel. For the love of God. What are you doing here? Go back to AP's channel. I don't have time for this. Yeah. We've gone 2 hours. So yeah, let's close this out.
Yeah. Chat. That's nice.
Oh yeah. We got about 90-ish or so and reached our goal. So did that. Yeah, check out the Wes Huff debate, full thing below. Really good presentation of the gospel. Use that, talk to your dirty agnostic and atheist friends. I think that'd be helpful. Oh, for the love of God. You guys come up with the weirdest questions. I don't even know. Don't do introvert church in VR world. Come on. Go meet real people. Except for me. Don't come meet me. So, all right. All right, everyone. My video will be premiering Friday. I'll be back on my channel with Joel Korecko, who's an Old Testament scholar, Septuagint scholar, Monday. And then we'll probably have a stream again Tuesday and then Wednesday based on things going on right now. But I'll get everything scheduled and on there. So I'll be back Monday live. AP will be live this weekend as he always is, I assume.
Yes.
Hopefully the Dizzle's recovered at that point.
I will be live, I think, with David tomorrow on his channel. He said he's going to be okay tomorrow, so he wants to talk about some guy who was on Piers Morgan the other day and was was talking about how Islam totally does not allow coercion in marriage and nothing like that, and Islam is totally cool and all that. He was this smug character, and David really wants to badly talk about that guy, so we're gonna do that.
You're gonna debate him?
That would be funny.
That'd be great. Anyway, why Bible sales have increased more than 20% in the last year? Because the Holy Spirit is on the move and has been for the past 10 years or so. And so I think there's more young people getting interested in church, and they feel like something is missing in their lives that secularism can't offer. There's no ritual, there's no sacredness, there's no meaning. So I think people are moving more in that direction, slowly but surely, as it always is. So I gotta get a video up on that. So all right, my cats are trying to kill each other. I gotta go. All right, everyone. I'll see you guys next Monday for sure, and come back to my channel Friday for the stream, and check out AP tomorrow and the Digital's channel with his cracky voice.